was a conviction or an acquittal or whatever happened to that record. So we cannot make that determination when there is no disposition.
I think we'll get more into it, but thank you very much. If you want to continue, Major.
The PICS and NICS processes and statistics are similar in many ways. Oh, I already said that. Both systems ultimately deny slightly over 1% of their checks. We have heard complaints about downtime, or those periods when the PICS system is out of service. The large majority of system downtime is attributed to technical issues with federal and state databases. In 2010, PICS was operational for a total of 5,110 hours. The system experienced only 95 hours of downtime, or just 1.8% of its total operational hours. Over the last 5 years, the PICS downtime was averaged even less, approximately 1.3% per year. Despite similarities between PICS and NICS, there are also some glaring differences. To begin with, NICS is required to conduct research and reply to a delayed background check within 3 days of receipt. If a person's legal status cannot be determined in 3 days, the licensed dealer is allowed to proceed with the sale of the firearm. This scenario poses a genuine safety concern because it allows prohibited persons to illegally procure firearms. Unlike NICS, the PICS process provides an additional assurance that no firearm will be sold or transferred to a prohibited person once the background check is initiated. If a person's status cannot be determined during the initial call, the PICS Instant Check Unit places the call in a delayed status for no more than 15 days. Within that time frame, trained PICS personnel investigate the person's background and gather necessary records to determine whether their transaction can be legally approved. If a final determination cannot be made in 15 days, the transaction is placed in an undetermined status. At that point, the subject may file a challenge. That brings me to the differences in federal and state challenge processes. NICS and PICS both offer a person who is denied a firearm the right to challenge that decision. However, a citizen appealing a NICS denial bears a heavy burden of proof to produce documents or otherwise prove the denial was unjust and should be reversed. Without professional legal assistance, ordinary people may have difficulty identifying and obtaining court documents, criminal histories, dispositions, or countless other records necessary to meet the burden of proof. The PICS process is just the opposite. When a transaction is denied, the PICS challenge unit assumes the burden of proof. This unit's sole purpose is to further investigate the validity of a denied person's challenge or appeal. Many times, after an in-depth investigation, this unit is able to reverse an original denial and approve a transaction that was in a delayed status. Last year alone, this unit investigated 3,826 challenges, ultimately reversing 1,382 denials, further protecting the Second Amendment rights of the citizens we serve. One unique component of PICS is the immediate voice response, or IVR, system. With PICS IVR, a licensed firearm dealer can use a touch-tone phone, punch in a few required key responses, and if no restrictions are present, receive an approval in a matter of minutes, all without speaking to an operator. In fact, this occurs in nearly 59% of the calls received by the PICS Instant Check Unit. In closing, let me state that the Pennsylvania General Assembly amended the Uniform Firearms Act in 1995, creating a Pennsylvania background check system designed to protect public safety and further the fundamental right of all law-abiding Pennsylvania citizens to keep and bear arms. For the past 13 years, the Pennsylvania State Police PICS Instant Check Unit has embraced these ideals and will continue to carry out its mandated duty and obligations for the benefit of all the citizens of the Commonwealth. And once again, thank you for this opportunity, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Major. We have a few questions from members of the committee. First, I was smiling. This reminds me of another state police issue we're dealing with. When the 800 megahertz system works well, the troopers love it. When it doesn't, it's very frustrating. And I think we heard that from our earlier testifiers that when it's a 5-minute call, it's acceptable for our doing business. But when it isn't, it's not only economically damaging and very frustrating, but some would argue not allowing an individual to exercise their constitutional rights. So we have a few questions. Senator Yaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In earlier testimony, there was some comment made about the difference in interpretation under the PICS system and as it conflicts with the Americans with Disabilities Act. I don't think you addressed that question. Can you address that? Tell us, is there a difference in interpretation? Where does the PICS system fit with ADA?
If I may, there is no difference between what the federal requirements are and what the state requires. The state just simply goes by what the federal regulations are. It's always been our basis or our determination that in the end, it's the dealer's responsibility to ensure that the applicant who is completing the application is answering the questions truthfully and to the satisfaction of the dealer to meet federal requirements.
Well, my understanding in their testimony, though, it was that if they cannot fill out the form themselves, they're ineligible to, considered to be ineligible to buy a firearm by PICS. Is that true or not true?
I would say that's incorrect.
So then ADA, if somebody has to fill out the form for them, it's okay.
Yes, sir.
There's an answer to your question, gentlemen, I guess.
We were told the opposite at a PICS meeting in Harrisburg.
All right. We may have to look into that issue further. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Furlow.
I'm sorry, just on this point, could you, just on this point, because I've been through a lot of hearings, I've never met a more reasonable speaker than Mr. Romanoff. He's just very calm and very deliberative and very eloquent, and you know, nothing would suggest that he's not being clear on his comments. But could you give us, through the chairman, a direct response in writing on this explicit issue? We need something in writing, because right now we have a he said, she said, and I'm not going to debate anybody's comments here, but you know, everybody's extremely reasonable here, and I'd like to.
We'd be happy to do
We
that,
have to
sir.
reconcile this.
Yes,
So
sir.
we have to do our own police investigation here, because this is
understand,
not
sir.
good. If I may be permitted, just what is the actual budget for the state police relative to running this system, both the personnel and how many individuals are employed or assigned to this task, as well as the IT, kind of ongoing IT costs and upgrades? Do you have any sense of that?
I don't have that detailed information available right now, but certainly we have it to be able to provide to you.
Is it, you know, is it $1 million? Is it $8 million? Is it a significant? I mean, how many personnel are assigned other than the colleague who's here today?
I believe I said there were 94 personnel assigned.
94 personnel. Basically
yes-
doing the administrative work, not actual field. I don't mean in any way suggest that this is not police work, but it's 94 individuals doing administrative functions.
Doing the functions of the firearms division.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And the rough cost to operate PICS is roughly $5.9 million per year.
But it's 90 plus officers of state police?
No,
or
the
is it
majority
like-
are civilian personnel.
Oh, civilian. Okay, that's
Yes.
that's what I'm trying to understand. Okay, and you indicated something about you kind of implied or inferred that that oftentimes your system is waiting for the federal system. You implied that. I'm not sure exactly what those instances are, but how would we get information to determine whether or not the federal system actually has downtime or problems? You had a sentence or two about implying that your delays were associated with the federal system not being operative, or...
Well, sir, our PICS system relies upon databases both state and federally. So if any one of those systems is unavailable, nobody can run a firearms
But you
check.
attributed a lot of the delays that have been enumerated here by some of the folks that provided testimony, suggesting that it's not you, it's that you have to interact with these other systems, and that's causing a lot of the substantial number of delays.
Sir, I didn't mean to imply it was primarily federal systems. It's both state and federal systems that we rely upon. the majority of the downtime is probably related to state systems. As a matter of fact, our annual firearms report, which is can be found on our website, has a breakdown of our system downtimes and also the federal system downtimes as well.
Okay, and just in closing, for someone who totally doesn't understand all these issues and trying to understand the issues, do you actually have a delineated checklist? You made references to what the federal system does that the state system, the state system does that the federal system does not. Do you have an actual enumerated checklist of those actual explicit data and information that would be present that you could provide to us? You mentioned mental health issues and a few, but I'm trying to understand the specificity of what the state system looks for or reviews versus the federal system that so many other states are just utilizing.
I believe I mentioned the majority of them in my testimony, but we could certainly provide a bullet point list
I guess I'm not asking for any personal information. Just do you have an enumerated log? I'm trying to understand what's